Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining this presentation with Chordate Medical. Today we're going to have a presentation about the report from Q1 2021, and the company is going to be presented by Weilandt, CEO. Your moderator today, myself, I am Alf Riple, and I work at Västra Hamnen Corporate Finance. We're going to start with a presentation and to be followed by a Q&A. You can write questions. There's a chat function on your screen, either on your right side or your left function or your bottom of your screen. It says questions, and there's a talk bubble. You can write your questions there. We will read them out, and Anders will answer. I should also say that this session is being recorded, and the recording will later on be found on Västra Hamnen's YouTube channel and on Chordate's homepage. So with that, I'll leave the word to you, Anders.
Thank you very much, Alf, and hello and welcome everybody listening in now or later to this Q1 presentation of our first quarter. So let's dive right into it. The small subject, of course, because we have not yet seen any substantial revenue, is of course our P&L. The revenue for the first quarter, only a quarter of last year, and all of that is due to the corona situation. We actually managed to have some revenue despite that. For those of you that does remember and follow the company a little bit, you remember that the first quarter last year was quite stunning, and the first sign of very good traction in Italy first and foremost, and then came the pandemic situation. So we have basically on a sales level been standing still since the end of Q1 last year. We're seeing changes to that now slowly, so let's hope this will be a changed picture going forward, but we still have some time to go in the pandemic effect on our sales. Regarding the cash flow from operation, that is higher than it was last year for the same period. That is attributed to massive and intensive work with the CE marking process, and also some continuous study activities, but we spent a lot and temporarily used a lot of consultants in order to achieve these two successes in the regulatory side. It doesn't reflect so much on the profit sides before or after taxes, as you can see, but that difference then comes from, again, the same reason that we had a temporary increase of consultants for regulatory work. The earnings per share change is attributed to the fact that we have emitted a lot of new shares in September last year. So basically, this is the financial part of the presentation. There's not much to talk about. The commercial activities haven't really commenced yet, even though we are far ahead in the preparation, and hopefully we will see better numbers going forward. So let's look a little bit on the highlights that we have been reporting lately. That the CE mark, or actually the EC certificate, really has been secured for chronic migraine, and this is an addition to our current or already existing EC certificate, which it translates to CE mark in the regulation. This is actually something that happened way over a year faster than we expected. So I have announced this as the most important event in the company's history, and I stand by that. Not only that, we managed to get it in under the former regulation that ended 2 days ago, before this new regulation took effect the 26th of May. But we also are now ready to go ahead so much earlier than we thought we could be with the migraine indication. The clinical trial in the chronic migraine continues. It is still affected by the COVID situation in our countries, Finland and Germany, where we do the tests. Quite heavy restrictions on how patients can be admitted into hospital for study work, and also requirement of all personnel needs to be vaccinated twice, plus a lot of other precautions that are taken to actually get patients into a hospital site for other than healthcare. So we are looking forward to see this being easing up as we go. I mean, situation in Finland and Germany is well known from the media, of course, to everyone. It's quite similar to the Swedish situation, and everybody can understand how detrimental this is when you try to do study work. However, the current expectation is that we will treat the last patients in the study in the Q3 period. It's not exactly clear when the last patient will leave the study, but we will have all patients active in the study during Q3. We have also published news about the distribution channels that are engaged in introduction of the chronic migraine indication. We have talked about Italy being very well prepared for that, and they are already active selling. I can also share that. And we have also said that for the Rhinitis side, that Saudi Arabia, or Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, expects an approval from the Ministry of Health for that nationwide reimbursement code sometime in the near future. I've got a lot of questions about when that can happen exactly, and the answer is that I don't think anybody knows. It's totally impossible to understand the process, or I don't think there is anyone that knows that exactly when it will happen, but in the near future is the answer to that. The Israeli distributors are now engaged in acquiring a market approval to enter at least in a pre-marketing stage in Israel, and that is ongoing. Also difficult to say how long it will take. Last time when they did that for Rhinitis, they were very fast, so let's hope they are fast this time too. It is also announced that the Italian distributor will build the migraine introduction on the base of the Rhinitis side. They have several sites that intend to perform and offer both indications for treatment. So we will see in the coming months and quarters how that will develop. So these are the highlights that we have announced and that we are able to talk about today. For those of you that are new to presentation from us, it might be good with some insights into these two indications. We have two indications, as you know, chronic migraine and chronic rhinitis. The chronic migraine being the most valuable to us because that market is already existing and very defined, and also extremely rich, if you like. Chronic migraine is costing the society a lot of money, and this is due to the fact that so many people are affected. You can basically assume about 2% of any population in the world are affected by chronic migraine. And the definition of chronic migraine is that you have more than 15 days of headache per month, whereof 8 days should contain migraine episodes. Then you are defined as a chronic migraine patient. That is, of course, a sliding scale. There is no real cutoff there, but this is how the faculty have decided that this is how we define a chronic migraine patient. That would mean that it's around 140 million patients in the world that have chronic migraine. We can use some Swedish numbers to understand what this costs for society. The annual cost for an average chronic migraine patient in Sweden is about 120,000 Swedish crowns, or 12,000 euros, or an equivalence in dollar, per year. And that goes on year after year after year. It's usually reported that healthcare costs, medicines, etc., stands for about 20% of that cost to society, and 80% is productivity loss due to very heavy absenteeism and presenteeism, where you are at work but not fully functional. It's a heavy load on the society, of course. We shouldn't forget the total prevalence of migraine, including all migraine patients. Many of us have had migraines during our life, once or twice, or a few times a year, or one time a year, or something like this. But the total prevalence for people in a population of Sweden that have had or have migraine episodes is about 13% in average. It is, however, a lot more common among women than it is amongst men. 17 versus 10% is usually the report. So that is the medical impact of migraine as such. So what do you do with it? There are several current therapy options that can be deployed depending on the individual situation, what the patient can accept or tolerate. There are a number of acute treatments during the acute episode, normal painkillers of various sorts. There are some special acute medicines as triptans and ergots, etc. And then there is a set of preventive therapies that are meant to lower the number of headache days or migraine attacks over time. The newest addition to this, most exciting set of drugs, there are like 4 different producers of this kind of drugs called Cgrp Inhibitors. These are delivered by monoclonal antibodies, a very advanced technology in the pharma industry, and a very late development. They started to be registered a couple of 2-3 years ago, so it's brand new. They are effective, but they don't help everybody. And the response rate is not total either. So all these alternatives are showing response rates and clinical effects that are less than 50% across the board. The Cgrp inhibitors are extremely expensive. A typical therapy per year cost in Sweden starts at 50,000-60,000 crowns and upwards in various countries. One alternative is Botox treatments, starting at 31 injections around the face, over the eyebrows, in the neck and head. Some regimes up to 40+ injections. This is something that's done in a clinic 4 times a year. And then there are other medicines that are preventive, some of them with some significant side effect profiles. So that is the therapy side, what you can do. The market and the money in this is quite substantial, by far led by pharma. Migraine drug revenues in the 7 biggest markets is projected to be $8-9 billion, growing by 10% in a couple of years. The Botox therapy migraine revenue from the 7 biggest markets is $700 million. Doesn't grow as fast. It is quite saturated and has been in the market for quite some time. medtech, medical devices, various types of products for neuromodulation, which is the industry segment that we belong to, using various types of implantable stimulators, in a way similar to a pacemaker, but for the nerve system. It could be for chronic pain in the back, in the sacral nerve, in the vagus nerve, but also for depression and conditions like Parkinson, etc., etc. You probably have heard about deep brain stimulators that you operate in with an electrode in the brain. That industry by itself is large, also around $8 billion projected in a couple of years. The segment where we belong, which would be external stimulators, is rather small in comparison, but it's included in these numbers. It is, however, growing with a great interest in all analysis that you can find on the internet. So that is the market and the money side of our project. This system that we produce delivers a treatment called kinetic oscillation stimulation. It has been proven in several clinical studies to have no or few side effects or unexpected side effects. So it's basically, in comparison, rather risk-free. It's of course not a drug, and nor is it surgery. It's a minimal invasive procedure where you vibrate a balloon in the nostrils of the patient. The treatment takes 20 minutes, 10 minutes on each side of the nose, and it can actually be performed by a trained nurse, so no doctors is involved in the treatment. Therefore, it's quite low cost to do this, or cost less than if a doctor would do it. The treatment is preventive, and that is also the aim and the indication in our CE mark, that it is indicated for preventive treatment of chronic migraine patients that are older than 18 years. As I said, easy to learn and use, therefore it can be spread widely. It doesn't have to be very special clinics and so forth. And it's also protected by today 70 patents in 24 countries. And we still have 3 active patent applications in the works. So there might be additions of patents later also. So that is the technology in a nutshell. There is also, as I mentioned before, another indication that is chronic rhinitis or chronic nasal congestion, stuffed nose in short, that never seem to end. And the definition of this is rhinitis or stuffed nose without allergy or infection as a cause. They are sorted differently. It is said in the literature that this concerns about 200 million patients in the world. And our treatment is positioned technically between ordinary nasal sprays, decongestive or deswelling nasal sprays that are available almost everywhere, which is the usual recommendation to this kind of patient. So try one of these sprays, but only do it for 14 days because that's how these drugs are designed. Unfortunately, patients continue year in and year out with these sprays, which is not good at all, and it's also demonstrated to actually cause nasal congestion that is chronic. The other end of the spectrum that can be prescribed to these patients are various types of surgical interventions. That comes with risks of infection and pain and loss of the smell or smell sensation or smell function. So there are some risks associated with that, and they are also quite costly. In between there, the healthcare provision doesn't have much to offer, and this is the area where we land this product. This is an alternative. It's meant to be an alternative to the sprays and to the surgical interventions. If you like to calculate sort of a total addressable market value, you can roughly say that per million population, you have total possible revenue in our price model that would amount to 5 million crowns per million of population. So this is of course a very interesting indication. It's also very rich, but everyone can understand that this market has to be built and it will take longer time. And that's exactly why we put more focus on the migraine indication, because we perceive that as being faster for us to show and demonstrate successes in than what it would be here in the rhinitis segment. But over time, rhinitis will also be an important indication. The company strategy going forward is very simple. We are building proof of concept in selected markets to support coming exit process. The other thing to support that is, of course, to finalize the current migraine study. That will be a great sales tool, very good in terms of reimbursement discussions in various markets, and also academically important to have that publication in place. These are the two things we now focus on, as the CE mark is already in place. So we can go right ahead and continue to build the proof of concept in market activity. This have gained support from our major shareholders. We have reported during Q1 and also after how our largest shareholders, several of them, have actually increased their holdings in the company. And you can see here one quote from Magnus Brandberg, who is sharing the top position among our top 10 shareholders. And they have a really thought through idea of why and how they invest in this kind of projects, which we like a lot. So we feel fantastic support from our major shareholders, which is constantly demonstrated by all means. So this is of course together with the support from probably several thousand new shareholders. If you add up Avanza and Nordnet, which are visible, we have increased the number of shareholders dramatically over the last couple of weeks and month, and the total is probably now somewhere around 5,000 shareholders or more. And that is a great development compared to a year ago, where that number was far below 1,000 shareholders. So fantastic support, and we're extremely grateful for all our new shareholders taking an interest in this company and this share. That was basically my short brief of the Q1 and what has been going on since then. So I leave it back to you now, Alf.
Thanks very much, Anders. Thanks for the initial presentation, and I will just repeat that you can ask questions. You can write them in the questions section, either on your right or on the bottom of your screen. Usually it's indicated by a talk bubble, so you can see that where to write. We have already got a few questions, both during the presentation and also beforehand. A few investors have mailed in questions to me beforehand, and we're very grateful for that. It's a good way of passing on your questions to us. So I think we'll start there with some of the mailed-in questions, if that's okay with you, Anders.
Absolutely.
And the first one is, what's the status for your joint venture in China with Alf Medical and with your product registration with the Chinese FDA?
It is ongoing. and I noted these questions before. As per our normal routine, we will publish and comment on events when they have happened, and we do not forecast dates, numbers, or events on beforehand. That is sort of a communication principle that we stick to. But the process is active. I can inform about that the effect in China and in scientific work in China has been equally grim there as it has been in Europe. So all of last year and more has been lost because any kind of scientific activity involving healthcare has been stopped during that. So that is one important notion. Another one would be that China around New Year or slightly after also have drastically changed their regulation and issued new laws that affects this. So it could be also said that in ways that it has been good for us together with Nanos to still be in the process and not having finalized it before, because that would have been meaning rework. So when this can be done, it's not anything that I can comment on, but I can only say that it is ongoing and it will happen.
Okay, thanks. Next question is, are there already discussions about any possible buyers for the company in relation to the exit that forms part of your market plan?
I cannot comment on that kind of question, of course. I can neither confirm nor deny, as it's usually said, and that shouldn't be interpreted whatsoever. But from a general perspective, that would be quite early in the process if that would have happened. So I leave it there for everybody's non-interpretation. But of course, we are very clear, and has been for years clear over that is the major strategy with this company and this project. So one can be sure that we will time any kind of activities to the best of our knowledge and capabilities.
Great. Is it likely that Chordate is going to get reimbursement codes for Sweden for your migraine treatment?
That is an interesting question. Whether it's likely or not, it's hard to tell. We first have a private sector with private paying customers, similar to what we have built on the Rhinitis side, that we will focus on because that will drive that matter. It can happen spontaneously in one of these regions in Sweden or landsting, because the healthcare providers in that region would require to have this option available to them and to be able to offer to patients. Sweden per se is, in that sense, in our strategy build, of less importance. More important and more interesting is, of course, our 6 clinics in Germany and our 4 clinics involved in the study in Finland, where 3 of them belong to a major private insurance healthcare company and structure that insures a majority of the active Finnish people in active age. That is a kind of a reimbursement, but it's not a public reimbursement if they decide that this is something they would like to offer based on the study. That is maybe more interesting to say. We have already, through our Italian distributors, public reimbursement in Italy in some regions. And the thing that we talked about in Saudi Arabia is also a public reimbursement by definition. It's actually nationwide. If the Ministry of Health decides to include this treatment, which they are now testing for, into their catalog, if you wish, of what is available to the public healthcare service in Saudi Arabia. That becomes a national reimbursement. Reimbursement is otherwise a long-term, extremely expensive investments that you need to make in certain European countries, and that is not something that we aggressively pursue. We believe that the private market is easier for us to have early successes in, and therefore we focus our early efforts in that segment.
Okay, great. In relation to your Q1 report, you published, the figures show that you had a cash outflow of more than 5 million SEK in Q1. Are you expecting it to be as high in the coming few quarters? And if so, will your cash reserves last until you get hopefully a refill with the option executions in October, I think?
As we don't forecast, I'm not at liberty to comment specifically on that. But I mentioned here earlier that our Q1 contained an extraordinary spending on consultants for the most part on the CE marking process. That could be read as not likely to continue as the CE marking process is completed. So I leave it at that. But I can also repeat what the board of directors have stated in the full Q1 report, is that the board is confident in the short-term and long-term financing of the company.
Just a follow-up question to that. As you said, you had extraordinary costs in Q1 related to the CE mark. Now, it was only in Q2 that you actually got the CE mark. Does it mean that you would have some extra costs also in Q2? Is that a likely or a reasonable interpretation?
These are submissions that are sent in earlier, and then there is a process of assessing these submissions. We most likely had some extraordinary consultancy costs also early Q2, but they would probably not be noticeable.
Okay, thanks. All right, moving on. Can you expand upon Chordate's initial target markets? And I'm expecting this is to do with migraine first and foremost.
Yeah. Extremely interesting and very current question right now. Of course, that's we are gearing up and putting stuff in works fast as the pandemic situation allows. It's basically to make sure that we can support our distributors and their salespeople to the best of our ability to be as quick as possible in gaining early installations of migraine machines, but also rhinitis machines, of course, because volume is important to us. This is a volume business, absolutely. So the tactic here is not difficult. It's just good, solid, old-fashioned sales work, and make sure that the installations are made and volumes are increasing. That is, as I alluded to before, focused on the private market for most cases, because that's quickest.
And will you be able to utilize the same sales channels, the rhinitis sales channels, for migraine indication in each of your markets?
For most part, Italy for sure. Eventually, Saudi. The Nordic areas, absolutely. The one exception is that for Israel, which will become, in my look at it, an important market for our early migraine success once they get the temporary approval for market entry. It will be focused solely on migraine. This is due to the fact that distributor is extremely experienced and since many years in the right circles in the Israeli market when it comes to neurology and headache specifically. So they will not spend time on introducing rhinitis in Italy. We did early studies and attempts there for the rhinitis and found the market environment not fruitful enough to further go on. It turned out that the surgical business of these advanced surgical procedures for rhinitis was a big and solid blocker, a lot of money, very lucrative for those that perform these surgical procedures. So we felt that there was too much effort needed to continue doing that. The migraine side in Israel seems to be completely different.
Mm-hmm. All right, you already touched upon this, but I don't. So if you have anything to add, what is Chordate's strategy for penetration in the public healthcare sector?
Opportunistically would be the way we will look at it. We will of course not say no, and again, the activity in Saudi is totally a matter of the public side, even though the early instigator of that process was actually gaining private reimbursement from private healthcare insurance companies in Saudi for the top two tiers of the 127, I think it is, private hospitals in Saudi. So that was the door opener to actually gain the interest from the Ministry of Health that runs 415 hospitals in Saudi Arabia. But again, that was basically opportunistically, and we will continue like that. We'll definitely entertain any possibility to sell into the public healthcare anywhere, but we will not chase it and we will not invest in it because it's going to be a long-term heavy investment that we right now don't think is the right choice tactically.
Okay, I'm going to combine two questions here. The one is how far away is migraine sales in Italy, and the other is when you're starting to do migraine treatments in Sweden.
Well, the Italians are already on the road, I can report. So we will see what happens, but these guys and girls are fast when they do things. So it seems like now they can actually operate in the market also since just a few days and week back, where they can call upon customers and actually travel around. So we'll see what that generates. The Swedish side is something that we care about, of course. We have, of course, a lot of relationships with Swedish patients, migraine patients that really like to have somewhere to go and get treated. So we will see, but it's not unlikely that our current 3 franchise clinics for the rhinitis in Sweden also can do this kind of treatments. But there are also a number, not many, but there are a number of private neurologists in Sweden that I hope take an early interest in this, and then we can create treatment sites where patients actually can seek remedy for their condition.
You touched upon this before, but the question is how far into the future do you see an exit?
Yeah, it belongs to one of these questions we don't comment on, but as it is stated as our prime target, we will of course do everything we can to make sure it happens as soon as possible, or at least at the right time.
You hope to get an edge over the Botox market. What kind of market share are you aiming for, and can you estimate potential future revenues for Chordate?
I can't be specific in any of these very interesting questions. I understand that is of high interest. The reason why we're focused on the Botox markets initially is because the 2 treatments are very similar. You have to show up at the clinic and get the treatment by healthcare providers. That's the case in both cases. That differs from taking a pill at home or taking an injection at home. I probably have to put in some sort of charger here to the computer. Hang on a sec. The treatment procedure, the time you need to spend in a clinic is very similar. The other thing that is important with the Botox market is that it is very private in many markets. So we would find private neurology offices and clinics that treat the patient with Botox. Therefore, the switchover staying in the private side is easier when we focus on the Botox. And the other thing, which is the last and most important one, is that the cost for a patient, the annual cost for Botox is an interesting price level. So that resonates very well with our projections of how we would like to be priced. So it's attractive for many reasons to go after the Botox market. A side notion is that patients that have opted to get Botox treatments have usually a long history of medication behind them, which they are dissatisfied with, can't tolerate, or have lost the effect from. Therefore, Botox to them is sort of a last resort that they have landed with. Therefore, the only alternative that they will compare us with is then Botox. It's not that they have a big palette of options. They have been through most of these colors on that palette, and the thing that they are stay on with is the Botox treatment. So also there, to offer an alternative that is not based on medication as Botox is in our view probably very attractive to that patient.
I see. An interesting question here. Do you share the view that COVID-19 has led to a build-up of strong liquidity in the medtech sector, and that deal making is likely to jump in the near future, I presume, after COVID-19 loses its grip? How will this affect Chordate, in particular with regard to the premature CE mark? My assumption is that these factors will facilitate a quicker exit.
I would not be sure about the liquidity buildup. It is absolutely so, but in different segments. A lot of the medtech, big medtech, has been suffering during COVID-19 due to the lower number of ordinary procedures. For sure, there is a lot of money accumulated due to the COVID-19 situation, but they are usually accumulated somewhere else. I do have a shorting issue here. I don't know.
Okay. I think we have to wrap it up in a couple of minutes anyway.
I think I can last through that.
All right.
Temporary situation here, but the last answer or the last portion of that question is that I think that there is a damned or accumulated need to do M&A activities that I think has been dampened during the pandemic also. So I think there is an appetite to continue with business development activities, and therefore I think it might be an upwind in M&A activities. Yes.
A few short questions to round it off here. First is, do you consider Chordate to be a global market leader in neuromodulation, given the selected indications, or are the competitors worth mentioning?
No, I mean, a company with barely any sales can't be a leader. I mean, that's we wish, but our potential is extremely interesting and has the potential of becoming a leader. That is, I think, the fair assessment right now. This whole idea of alternatives, medical device alternatives to pharmacological treatments in migraine is gaining a lot of interest, and I think that our procedure, which is very unique, also extremely well protected by patents, is definitely in a position where we can become a market leader eventually. That is of course something we're shooting for. The last part of the question was what?
Do you know of any competitors that are worth mentioning?
Oh yeah, there are many interesting projects around the world, similar to us, early stage, hardly in the market for some reason, and hardly even approved in some other reasons. But there's a lot of activity and a lot of interest in investing in these kind of activities. So we're not alone, and that's the way I look at it right now.
You touched upon Saudi Arabia and your chances of getting an approval there. We take the second part of the question. What happens if you don't get an approval in Saudi Arabia?
Our distributor will continue, certainly with the private side. 127 hospitals is not bad, even though they just have the code for the first 25-30 right now. It's still huge for us. So we will mill on, and that kind of door can always be open again. So again, it's just basic, ordinary, old-time fashion sales work. So that will continue.
And what would make you change your strategy of exit?
If our main owners change their mind, which I can't forecast because it's way above my pay grade, but right now we have a very solid support for this strategy from our main owners. So I don't see that coming soon.
And final question of today, what do you consider a reasonable exit price?
Typical question I wouldn't even touch as a CEO. But that price will of course be on a level where both parties agree, and that the buyer is happy and the seller is happy.
I think we can respect that answer for now. This has been very interesting. Thank you everybody who listened in and asked questions. Thank you, Anders, for a great presentation.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.